Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the first 100 days. This season, we'll ask revenue leaders to share their stories around building alignment between sales, marketing, and RevOps. Our guests today are Kristin Agnelli. She is Senior Global Director of Sales Development at ThoughtSpot, where she works closely with Megan Boone, who is Senior Director of Revenue Marketing. The two have only been working together for just over 6 months, but they've been really busy. Our conversation is going to focus on the biggest project they've tackled so far, revamping their marketing qualified leads MQL process. Doesn't sound like the most exciting initiative, but they've figured out how to make it fun, engaging, and build strong relationship and alignment throughout this process.
Thank you for being here today. I just, to get things started, an easy question. Maybe Kristin, if you can give a quick intro of who you are and your company, and then we'll go to you, Megan.
Yeah, so Kristin Agnelli, excited to be here too. I run our global sales development team, sitting in the sales department, reporting to our chief revenue officer at ThoughtSpot.
I'm Megan Boone, and I lead our revenue marketing team here at ThoughtSpot, which for us consists of North America field marketing, demand generation, and growth marketing. This is a newer initiative for us, which we're very, very excited about, all focused on revenue.
So you guys are the first pair that we have on this show that are actually working together right now. Usually we're trying to get someone who used to work together so we can get all the drama that happened when you guys trying to build revenue alignment. Right now, how big is ThoughtSpot, just to give the audience a context?
What do you think, Megan? We're about 750 employees.
And how big are your teams, the sales dev and the revenue marketing?
So our sales development team is spread around the world, as you would imagine. So we have the biggest part of the team is in the US, where we have about 18 folks. And then across Europe and APJ, we've got another 6 or 7 people, including leaders and reps and all inbound, outbound, all that good stuff.
And the revenue marketing side, we're super lean and efficient. Right now it's about 6 of us, and that will be moving to 9 very shortly.
And so I talked to Kristin a little bit earlier this week, just the kind of initiatives that you guys been leading together. So you both joined ThoughtSpot roughly the same time-ish, right? About 6 months or so? No, Megan, you've been there for a year and a half.
Yes, yeah. So I've had a little bit more time at ThoughtSpot than Kristin, and I think it helped because, when she joined, I'm like, stack of papers on her desk. Like, here's all the things we need to go solve together. I'm so happy you're here.
That's great. So the initiative that Kristin shared with me is moving from revamping the MQL definition. Can you give us more context of what started this?
Yeah, I can give some more background on that. And it all starts with a shift in our go-to-market model. So about 2 years ago or so, we launched in the cloud. We built out a commercial sales segment. We launched a free trial. The other day, we just launched a self-service option. So if anyone here is interested in trying ThoughtSpot, you can do it for $95 a month now, which we are very, very excited about. But what that means is, for 8 years, we had built a business around really an ABM approach. We were going after large enterprises. We had about 2,000 accounts that we cared about and didn't really need to focus on anything else. And so, all of our processes and systems were designed for that business model. And so we've really had to rethink everything from scratch. And so we started with the MQL when we saw the conversion rates. I don't know if I want to share the actual rates, but we weren't happy with the conversion rates from MQL to what we're looking at for first meetings. And so when Kristin joined, we really came together and said, we got to tackle this, but we know we can't tackle this just from changing the definition of the MQL the definition of the MQL. We've got to approach this from a couple different perspectives. And for us, that's who we're sending to the SDR team. So that's the definition itself. How fast are they responding, and are they enabled to respond quickly? And then what are they saying when they responded? So we've really come together on building a Tiger team around that initiative.
Yeah, we actually have a Friday MQL Tiger team is the name of the meeting. So
I'll quote Kristin. She says it's her favorite meeting of the week.
It is my favorite meeting. We have a ton of fun. There's a bunch of us in that meeting that are in a bunch of other meetings throughout the week, but that's the only one that we're all in, and it's on Friday, so everyone's in a good mood. It's awesome. But I would add too from the sales side of the project and the stuff that we've been working on, and Megan's an amazing partner, and we definitely push each other, and it's been really, really fun. She helped interview me, and then she's also been, one of my biggest partners in crime since I got here. So we're having a lot of fun. But, on the SDR front, from an MQL perspective, like the culture was kind of like, and it's not wrong, but the culture was very much like, well, outbound's better than inbound, right? Like I got it myself, and we all know that's harder, right? But, we've had to kind of say, like, actually an MQL is equally as important as you going and doing outbound, because we were seeing, like, SDRs weren't following up on stuff as quickly as they should have been because they're too, driven to go find the outbound stuff, since that's what they were kind of being pushed to go do, right? So we had to kind of level set with the team, that's like, hey, MQLs are just as important. Those are, high value folks that are raising their hand, and we're spending a lot of time and resources, creating them. And so you can't let them sit there. And so there's an accountability that, we've put into place that I don't think was there previously. And then just a clarity of, there's inbound and outbound reps, and I won't get too deep in the weeds, but like outbound reps do get MQLs for accounts that they're working in stuff, which is okay. But it's like, hey, you got to jump on these too, So a lot of that is just the philosophical stuff of the team on the sales side, and making sure that we're being good, partners to the marketing organization.
And how do you do this? Because I think there's obviously education, but I feel like there's more thought into this to make sure that everyone follows that.
Yeah, so you can't do it in a day, right? It's not something that you just say, no, this is what we're going to do. And they're all like, okay, I'll go do that now. It'd be great.
Just a Slack message. That's all it takes.
Yeah. One Slack message and it was done. Yeah, no, I wish that was true. No, we do. When you come in and you're kind of rebuilding an SDR org and putting in, which is what I've been working on, and I've been here for 6 months, and just trying to put like new rules of engagement and reprioritizing their work and the way that they think. It's just a culture shift, right? And so it's some of it is as boring as documentation and saying like, here's kind of the ground rules and the rules of engagement and the things that we do and don't do, right? The things we tolerate and don't. And then there's just, setting expectations consistently. You can't communicate something once. Megan and I were talking yesterday, and like internal communication, I think, is often any company and any part of an organization of every company's biggest challenge, right? So can't say it once and then assume that it's going to happen. You have to repeatedly hold people accountable. And we've done things like, hey, if you don't follow up on your MQLs within the SLAs we put in place, we're going to reassign them to somebody else. And then we go do that. And then that person gets to book a meeting and create an opportunity where the original SDR should have, right? And so to be frank, if you hit them in their pocketbook, that hurts, right? So it's a matter of saying like, hey, this is the behavior we want, incentivize the behavior that you want, and then de-incentivize the behavier that you don't. So
like I want to be part of the Tiger team meeting. I think that sounds fun. So what are we doing next week? Like, just being really creative and then implementing and testing next week or following up.
No. I mean, it is really fun, but I mean, I think that was the core learning for me, especially before Kristin got here. I was like coming in hot. We're going to change this. Here's what we're going to do. And didn't bring people along the journey and, hit a wall really, really quickly on that. And so that's why we formed a Tiger team of experts to say, hey, like, let's say, where do we want to go? And let's all work together to get there versus in a silo defining the entire thing. It's a really hard way to get things done. I don't know anyone who does it successfully that way. So the Tiger team, make it fun, and people will show up weekly, and then you get it done faster.
How do you make it fun? I guess we're getting really tactical, but I'm curious. Friday meetings talk about conversion and pipeline, and you guys love it. I need to know the secret.
It's a really good group of people who have a lot of trust and care deeply about where we're going, but I don't think anyone takes themselves very seriously. It's like not the cliche of leaving your ego at the door, but it also is. I mean, we've got some pretty experienced people in the group who come, they're open, they listen, and they come with ideas. And so I think just the fact that everyone's heard and respected, and I also think I'm pretty funny, which helps, but maybe that's a personal thing. But I think doing it on Fridays too, people have less of a schedule. We do a Friday morning West Coast hours. And so I think people feel a little bit more free to speak their mind.
We joke, like because we work with each other so much in the group, just to like break it down, and Megan is funny. So,
Thank you.
But we do have, it's like sales ops, marketing ops, some additional layers of leadership kind of at the business operational level that is there most of the time. But then you've got, myself, Megan, so you've got a good mix of people at varying levels that, to reiterate Megan, like just really sharp, really dedicated to like working with each other. And I think we've built an environment, and it's Megan's meeting, so I'll give her all the credit for this, where there's like it's like healthy conflict is welcome, right? And this is something that, and I'll like give Megan all kinds of credit here that we've actually never talked about, but she's really good at owning what she's great at and where we're still working on things, right? And so it creates an environment where everybody feels vulnerable enough to share that too, so that we can say, we're really good at this, we're really bad at this, like let's talk about these things in a cross-functional way, and that's how we're getting better. If we all walked in there like, ready to go and just talking about the easy stuff, we wouldn't be solving a lot of these problems, and it wouldn't be as fun. So
it's really interesting that you picked the word trust, because we interviewed another pair from Drift and Terminus, and they used to work together, and that was the key word as well. But they worked together for, I think, years, like 4 years at least. Megan and Kristin, you guys just met 6 months or so ago during the interview process, right? How did you build the trust in such a short time? Besides Megan being really funny.
That helps. No, I mean, I think it's, to Kristin's point, I think it's being vulnerable, saying, here's what's working, and like, here's what's not, and I need your help to go fix that. And then just being really clear about what it is that you're going to do together. And I mean, I have total trust in Kristin, and I hope she has total trust in me that, when we have a conversation, we're both aligned, and then we're going out and having those same conversations with, our department leaders and the people that matter. And it feels like it's amplified, that work, versus having to go do it all alone, which is really hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's that I'm a big believer in like, if you're vulnerable right out of the gate, that allows the other people around you to be that way too. And Megan's been that way with me since day one, and I try to be the same, and we've just built a really great rapport and trust in each other, and we're honest with each other, and I mean, that's what you can't ask for more than that, as far as this kind of relationship goes.
Totally. And I do think part of it is you can't always do this if you're not interviewing someone, but being really transparent about what the problems are if you're interviewing someone coming in, and saying, this is what you're walking into. Like, let's not pretend that everything's perfect, because we all know it's not. So being really transparent, like, do you want to come solve this with me and with the team? Mm-hmm. And so that person then comes in and they're like, okay, but I was expecting this, so I'm here for it.
I love this. Like, this is also what I'm thinking about when we're hiring. Like, we're a startup. Like, this means you coming in, and there are really good things and there are really bad things in terms of like the processes that don't exist. Like, this is great that some don't exist. It's bad that others don't. And so it's just so just being very transparent and finding the person that thrives in this environment, or that wants to have that environment, is just key there.
And Megan, I want to double click on what you said earlier. So you tried doing this initiative before Kristin joined. And you mentioned that you tried and you couldn't, I think you said like couldn't bring the team along. Can you share like what happened there?
Yeah, I came in hot. I wrote this document. I said, here's all the problems that I see. It was very me centric. I was like, here are the problems that I see. Here's what I want to do. And everyone's like, okay, slow it down way more, because people are going to be then on the defensive. Why are you coming in? Why are you changing processes? What's wrong with what we currently have? Versus saying, hey, like, let's get buy-in on where do we want to go and what do we think good looks like, and then do that work back plan to be like, okay, well, like, we're going to walk back and we're going to realize that the MQL definition is kind of the start of all of this. Do we all agree? And get that buy-in every step of the way. And I think we do that well in our weekly meeting, which is doing those gut checks. And, people can be really quiet on Zoom meetings, and making everyone talk and saying like, what is your perspective, and noticing the signals where someone like cringes or their body language is holding back, and giving them like runway to voice their opinion, and then also making those agree to disagree moments. Like,
yeah, that's incredible. I feel like that's advice that applied not just like revenue alignment, but any new initiative, any kind of project, right? So has there been any conflict? Because naturally, it's a push and pull. So has there been any conflict, like a major conflict, and how did you guys resolve that?
No, I was trying to think about it too. We talked about it yesterday, and we were like, we gotta have something. Like, it's not all puppy dogs and rainbows all the time, right? And I don't know that I'll answer it probably in a little bit of a different way. I don't think Megan and I have had conflict that goes beyond like your typical healthy conflict of like agree or disagree and then still commit to whatever the decision is. But I think there's been conflicts along the way of moving the organization in a different way, right? Like helping the organization of like either the sales culture or a marketing perspective, or not all MQLs are created equal. And that's something that like Megan and I agree with, but not all marketers agree with that, right? And so it's trying to like change the org a little bit to come along with us on the journey of what we're trying to do. And I would say that there's been some conflicts with that along the way that are more in alignment with like just change management conflicts and helping people understand and communicating out those changes. And then certainly, bringing the SDRs along to say like, this is where we're going and this is how this is going to impact you in a positive way in your workload and in what you're doing. And so I would say there's been some of those kinds of things, but in general, like I wouldn't say it's been full of any sort of big conflict.
Yeah,
that's a safe answer. I know.
You need to interview individually there.
But so I just want to make sure that I understood the kind of like the context of the business. So it sounds like ThoughtSpot, historically, the go-to-market motion is very much account-based. You mentioned like 2,000 accounts, and that's why the team is very outbound-centric. And now the initiative that you both driving, the MQL, is kind of like the inbound motion to supplement that, right? And that's a new motion for the team who's been outbound for so long. Is that kind of like the...
Kind of. We've always had an inbound motion, and marketing's, always been a big driver of pipeline for us. But the way we do that is very different than the way we need to do that for our commercial segments. And so for us, the hot term of the day is PLG. We're very much embracing the PLG mindset. But with that, it comes a lot of challenges. When does the SDR reach out when someone signs up for a free trial? What happens on the pricing page? Like, really putting that user first and making sure their experience is, gate kept as much as possible is really, really hard because everyone has these aggressive goals internally. So I think, Kristin's alluding to, change management conflict, things like that. Sometimes that's really where it comes from, is this massive shift of, well, how do we serve all of our customers really well? And they're all really different. So it ends up being complicated. There's a ton of teams involved. Whereas before it was a little bit more traditional marketing, sales, and the rest of the teams are doing their thing.
I was kind of guessing it was PLG, but I didn't want to assume because I saw the announcement. So my background was also in analytics space before User Gems. So I saw, I think Scott Holden is the CMO.
Yep.
I saw the announcement. I'm like, oh, wow, they're doing PLG now. So, now this makes sense. So this is the MQL definition tied to the PLG.
A little bit. We've got the complicated product qualified lead coming into that MQL definition. But our MQL definition, because we were only focused on a small number of accounts, was really, really wide. We're like, we'll talk to people if they're interested. And now we're trying to say, well, ideal customer profile is where it's at. Let's try to refine this because, pitching our own product, we've got a really, really compelling value prop. We're trying to make data accessible to every business user at every company, but so everyone is interested. But we really want to focus on who are the people who are going to buy now, who are going to buy quickly, and be really successful using our product, and then hopefully become champions of us. That's where we really want to put all of our eggs in. It's complicated now that the signals are completely different.
Got it. And Kristin, I think you mentioned in a previous call that you guys also use ThoughtSpot as like to find out like who's the right customers or who the type of leads that you should prioritize, right? Can you share a bit
Yeah.
more? I feel like data kind of like what ties the two teams together because you guys looking at the same data.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're big on drinking our own champagne to the extent that even our internal instance of ThoughtSpot is called champagne. So, Megan's got a lot of great demand gen live boards because we believe that, data should be live and in the moment versus, these dead dashboards that live for a little while and you got to refresh them all the time. And so we look at them constantly to see like what personas are converting, and not just converting to, from MQL to a meeting that an SDR is setting up, but to what Megan said earlier, like what's converting to actual like, sales stages and pipeline and ultimately revenue, because we can meet with anyone, right? Like we can meet with a product person and we can show them ThoughtSpot because we have an embedded analytics capability as well. And that's great, but are they going to be empowered to go buy something? And so there's always that kind of push and pull between the buyer and the seller, right? The SDR saying, hey, we can book this meeting, but I know this one's going to get disqualified because they're not going to actually buy anything. But we try to use those things as like, how can we learn about the company and learn about what they're doing and still kind of plant a seed and create a little bit of like a groundswell within the organization. But that's where the model that we're trying to, build and implement out into the organization is helping us to say, okay, well, these are great people to like maybe have a conversation with, to learn from. So they could still MQL, but these aren't necessarily the people that like we are going to call a super high value MQL that gets flagged, immediately for follow-up, because we really want to make sure that we prioritize the SDR's time in the most effective way so that they're going to those decision makers first and that those are the low-hanging fruit and that's where they go. And then using our own data internally to say like these are the validated, points that we're using as we're building the model, and that the SDRs are, acting on them at really rapid pace and get sort of, called out in a public positive way of like, hey, look, this one, this SDR did this and it was amazing. And they get to kind of share that on Sales All Hands and all kinds of other fun things to celebrate those successes.
Because a lot of time people talk about alignment is like the data. Sometimes in a lot of companies, like marketing lives in HubSpot and Marketo, sales and Salesforce, different metrics. That's when you kind of like, what is going on? Sounds like you guys already tie all that kind of like a unified data view. Is that kind of like what goes on in that, like the Tiger Friday meetings?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we can't move any projects forward without data that we all trust. And that's like what we're really trying to solve is break all of this data out of its silos, bring it together so that when Kristin and I are talking, like we're sharing the same views of data, and she can see, everything that's going on in my world. I can see everything that's going on in her world, and really democratize that access. I mean, not to just use, I think everyone says that, but we very much believe like we've got all these sources of data, we've got to bring them together, and we have to give them to everybody so they can do their jobs really efficiently. And that's how you build alignment and trust is, well, this is what we're working towards, and this is what we know. This is our reality, and you all have access to that. So,
well, that's great. And I think, ThoughtSpot definitely has that democratizing data for everyone. I think that makes sense because we can search, you're just typing like normal human language instead of SQL or Python and gazillion other things. So I believe in that.
And that's exactly, and that's how we do it. It's not just bringing all the data together in one unified view, but making it really easy for us to access too. And that's the Google search, component of it, which is we all search in our everyday lives. Why shouldn't we be able to search for answers in our data? And so you just have to come with the questions. That's all you need.
And I think, Kristin, in your team, does the data sometimes say different things than the experience of the SDRs?
That's a great question. Sometimes, yeah. And I mean, you also have to think about your SDRs that are in different parts of the world, and some of them just because of the nature of where we are in our journey in that region, right? So in Australia, we have one SDR, Maddie, who's amazing and she's incredible, but she's hybrid. She's handling everything, right? So she's handling inbound free trials and the follow-up there. She's handling the MQLs that are coming in for the region, and then she's doing, strategic outbound in alignment with her AEs that she supports as well. So she's wearing a lot of different hats. So the data always tells the truth, right? And so, but the experience of the SDR does vary a little bit based on like what they're having to handle. So, a hybrid SDR, the data will say like that a lot of their, even though they're hybrid, that a lot of their work is actually marketing sourced. And that's good, right? Like that's okay. And we say some of that marketing source, and Megan and I talk about this, and Scott is a big believer in this too, that, outbound SDRs create MQLs, right? And so when you have them doing work and they've got outreach sequences that are pointing to marketing, content or events or programs or things like that, they're going to create, kind of self-generated MQLs, which shows that it's SDR created, but it's marketing sourced. And it's just a really good partnership of how SDRs should work in tandem with, the marketing programs and campaigns and content and things that, Megan's team is putting together. So the data will tell us that it's actually heavy marketing sourced, when a lot of times that, not a lot, but sometimes that marketing source is a combination of the outreach sequences and things like that, utilizing marketing programs. So one nuance, I would say, but otherwise it's always right.
But it's true, right? The last point, I mean, the buyer journey is like not a straight line.
No, right.
So just someone see an ad or get an SDR outreach, and then you just can't map it. So everyone works together because the buyer journey is not straight. They don't make a decision just because of one thing. So it's a combination. So it's actually, we should work together essentially.
100%. And I mean, that's why it's so important too, that there's like no ego involved in where things are being sourced from. And we're looking at opportunity source. We simplify it to marketing, SDR, sales, but we're just trying to crack the nut of where should we spend our time and money, and just like keep doing the things that are working well versus trying to take credit or ownership for something that occurred.
Even though it very much feels like if I'm the SDR and I write an email and they respond, it certainly feels very much like I sourced that.
Oh, 100%. And one way we tackle it, it's not perfect, but it's just in the attribution of it, which is we build specific pages for the SDR sequences. Now, separate thing to tackle is making sure everyone's using the right sequences and the right links. So won't say it's perfect by any means, but then saying it then does become sales source, but we want to know that that marketing campaign or that message was the hook, but still make sure that the SDR is getting the credit, or we're putting where credit is due.
Kristin loves to claim credits. We have a demo request comes in and it's like, yes, it's from like an ABM campaign. It's like, nope, I talked to this person at a field event 2 years ago.
I was at that conference and I remember. Okay, that's why they came back.
Well, this is why attribution is so sticky too, because it's oftentimes those in-person conversations that you can't track back to. This was a LinkedIn ad that went out this day. I mean, it's what a mess.
Yeah, attributions. We could probably have a whole nother podcast.
You can't track anything.
Just on attribution. There's all kinds of philosophies.
I feel like it's more like a therapy session for all.
I think it's a therapy
session. Is it last touch? Is it first touch? What happened? And how much time in between? Are you still allowed to? Oh yeah, all kinds of fun things.
So like to wrap things up, so it sounds like you guys went through a lot in terms of like changing major motion. This is a huge initiative. It's a different way of doing things for the SDR team and the handoff between the two teams. And then building the alignment and you guys just started working together. So there's a lot of newness in this. So for other revenue practitioners that going through like the same experience right now, like what would be your top 3 advice or tips that they could keep in mind as they kind of figuring out that stuff?
Bringing the teams along and the organization along, like they have to know why, right? Like why are we trying to change the process? What's in it for them? And why is it good for the business? And so just being really transparent about these are some of the things we're trying to change. Here's why we're trying to change them. Here's the benefit to you, right? And from a sales perspective, here's how it's going to impact you positively in your commission check, like all of those things, right? And so I think just over communicating and communicating along the way of what we're trying to do, why we're trying to do it, where we are against that, and then taking it a week at a time, a month at a time, a quarter at a time. Because sometimes when you make big sweeping changes like this that we're you get lost in like, this is really big. How do I actually go tackle this? And I think using Asana and meeting every Friday and having that cross-functional alignment and accountability lets us move things along on a consistent basis in a way that doesn't feel so big and overwhelming that we can't do it, right? And so I think it's those things too. I don't know how many that counts as, but probably a couple.
We just have a new SVP of sales and CS join, and I told him on day one, I'm like, I'm calm on revenue. So we're on the same page. I'm with you. So yeah, that's a really good tip. I like that.
That's awesome. Like, you should share this before every meeting. Okay, here are the things I care about based on my compensation structure.
Well, thank you so much, Megan and Kristin. This is really, really fun.